Hey guys, this is Project Starcraft, coming at you from Entombed Valley in the digital realm of Starcraft 2. Casting a game that I received from Cast and this was a game that I originally overlooked, and I'm really sad that I did, so we're going to look at this game together. Spawning in the top right position on Entombed Valley, we have our red Terran, Opsis. In the bottom right hand corner, we have our blue Zerg, Cluckcluckbo. I think we're just going to run with Cluck for now. As we explained in Entombed Valley, or get into the game, you have your main base, which leads down into a natural. And it leads down into your natural, and it has a pretty wide ramp going into that. Some destructible rocks lead into a pretty naturally easy to take third. There's plenty of bases on the map from other starting positions. And there's a center Zelnaga watchtower in the middle of the map that kind of controls things. Now, I'm sorry for kind of late game tonight. I was able to get off of work a little bit early, and that was unexpected. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to cast some games till the missus gets home. Screw it. Because I'm punk rock, and I do what I want. And I really want to cast some more. I'm also a little under the weather. Some allergies are really kicking my ass, so we'll go until I pass out. I think that sounds like a good plan. It's also lighting outside, so if my stream just suddenly just crashes, something like that, I might be dead or the power just might have blunk. Now, as we can kind of see from the original opening, it looks like we had probably a 13 hatch for our Zerg player Cluck. We see some more center play from Opsis. We see a 12 refinery and 13 gas. So nothing too out of the ordinary. Opsis is scouting in the incorrect position, and looks like Cluck is scouting the correct position with the Overlord timing. Command center coming down right on time on 16, and Opsis decides to wall in before he decides to really reveal any kind of tech. Now pool about halfway done for Cluck. Still hasn't gotten any kind of gas yet, so it looks like we're probably going to be looking for either a fast third, or he really wants to power those drones right now. Now Opsis revealing that he's going to be building a factory. And it looks like that his vision or his opening is going to be spotted. Now Opsis knows that Cluck has an Overlord close by. So we're probably going to see either Reactor Hellion into an expand, or something further up the tech tree as Opsis takes a second gas. We see 2 queens being built by Cluck, one at each chat tree, and a extractor being built. So he's going to start teching up, likely getting that speed so he can be able to hold on to it. Now drone trying to sneak up, see if there's any kind of add-ons being attached. It's interesting that he decided not to build a reactor or anything like that, but he decided that he's going to build a second factory. So we're going to see a lot of mech openings from Opsis, and we'll see how that goes into, or what that transitions to. Roachhorn being thrown down for our Zerg player Cluck. It's actually a rare sight to see. A lot of Zergs don't really go for roaches a whole lot, just because it's very difficult to utilize them properly. We see second gas going down for Cluck. So he's getting a second gas pretty quickly, and he hasn't gotten any kind of layer tech yet. So it's interesting to see what kind of gas he's going to be doing. As we can see from the production tab and some of the other units, we see Blue Flame Hellions on the way. I wonder how Opsis is going to make this work, investing so heavily. Now, Roaches, they do pretty good against Hellions in a one-on-one fight, but Hellions are mainly used as a harass type unit, being able to drop in the side of the base and do a run-by and roast some drones and be able to get the hell out of there. So a little bit of clunkiness coming from Opsis, building only a handful of Marines. He could have utilized the downtime right here, built the reactor right here, so he'd be able to be consistently pumping Hellions out the entire time. We see some Roaches being produced, and already been produced, and we see Zergling speed just started. Now Opsis still on one base, has 5 Hellions, and he's deciding to sneak out about right now. And those Zerglings never saw it coming. And also the fact that he roasted them before Blue Flame Preigniter was done. It's going to be interesting to see how Cluck decides to react to it. Looked like Cluck pushed out just a little bit, but decided to bring his roaches home. And Opsis' Hellions run right into that, and Cluck actually doing a pretty good job of locking down the ability for those guys to do a run by now. Several drones are being targeted right here, and they're going to go down with a couple swipes from here, but with the Queen and the roaches, they should be able to clean that up pretty well. With 13 more drones on the way, Opsis only lost about 6 workers. So even though he's slightly down in the food, we can see that he's immediately caught back up, taking a drone lead. Now, Opsis not deciding how to properly follow that up. He's building a siege tank, still building Hellions and researching siege mode. So it looks like he's going to be doing a heavily convinced bio play. See Cluckcluck's roaches taking out the destructible rocks at the third, and we see a layer about halfway complete. Opsis is building the in-base command center. It looks like he's building a bunker because he feels like that he's in a little bit of trouble. See, the thing I was talking about utilizing the Xel'Naga watchtowers, it's important to hold it, but yeah, you can actually still be able to see attack patterns across the side unless they decide to take this sneaky way around. So you need to utilize a couple different units here to be able to really see all the attack paths. We see Opsis transitioning into a dual tech lab, so it looks like he's going to be pushing out quite a few siege tanks. We see a third base for Cluck and +1 ranged attack for Zerg, and Glial reconstitution, which is roach speed on the way. If we go to the unit counting station, we see that Opsis did a pretty good job of making sure that he's consistently building SCVs. He's up to 33 against our Zerg players 43. And he's continuing to make continuing to make SCVs. So even with the quick, mainer of about 8 SCVs, he's still going to be pretty well saturated. Opsis utilizing map control and taking some of these Hellions, and it looks like some of them got split up. But look how many roaches are right there, and they decide to drive on by, see what kind of damage they can do. And to be really honest, it's not a whole lot. This one pesky Hellion trying to see if he can get anything down. He's able to get 1 kill. Will he be able to get a second? No, he doesn't. So if we go to the units lost tab, it looks like Zerg hasn't lost that much, and Opsis has lost all of his Hellions. So Zerg doing an okay job of cleaning it up, but at what cost? Normally, a lot of high-level Zergs consider going roaches against Terran a very, very dangerous thing. We see pneumatized carapace being done and burrow being completed, as long as +1 carapace on the way. Excuse me, I shouldn't have sniffed like that. It's very unprofessional of me. We see some additional factories being put down, so we're up to a total of 4 factories. It's a lot of SCVs being transferred, about 18 down into this base. So we kind of see that Opsis is going heavy mech. It's still not quite as efficient, but he's normally doing tank. Not even really marine tank, just tank. He's also 40 food behind his Zerg opponent as Zerg is starting to push in with a stream of Zerglings. The Zerglings are able to take out a siege tank, but at what cost? Now we see a spire that's about halfway completed. We still see the battalion of roaches right here. It seems like that Cluck isn't doing any other kind of further roach production quite yet. Looks like he's probably going to be transferring it or transitioning into a mutaball or some type of mutaplay. But he's also getting Baneling Nest and +1 melee weapons for his Zerg lings. I feel like I'm not giving my best, guys. I will do my best to change that. We see 2 armies going down for Opsis, so it looks like he's going to be getting a lot of those mech upgrades. Just making sure that he's good to go on that. getting a macro hatchery inside base, and we see 8 mutas along the way. +2 carapace, and +1 melee attacks is on the way. And we see those Zerglings and mutas. Where did those mutas go? They're popping about right there. See an Overseer walk in, decide to drop a Changeling that just got instantly gibbed. Checking the unit counting station, it's really interesting to see that Opsis' army consists of 4 Hellions and 7 tanks. 5 Marines are mainly inside of a bunker. As Cluckcluck's army is a little bit more diverse, we see 14 Roaches, 8 Mutalisks, and about 14 Zerglings that are taking the Zelnaga Watchtower. Now, I like Cluckcluck's spread. His creep spread is actually pretty low inside his bases, but he's got pretty much the right side of the map taken care of, so if Opsis decides to move out, he'll have a pretty good idea of what's going on. We see +2 Carapace and Baneling speed. The centrifugal hooks being done as +1 finishes. We also see +5 more mutas along the way. Going to the Terran base, we see +1 vehicle weapons and armor being researched and 2 starports being built. Where are those Pegasus starports? Up here. And we see tech clouds being added to them. So he might be going Banshee or he might be going Raven. Very interesting to see what he decides to go out of that. As Opsis takes his 3rd, Cluckcluck decides to plop down a 4th, and he's got Zerglings near just to kind of see what kind of expansion timing is going on. We see some Hellions driving around, seeing if they can pick off anything close by, but we see a really passive game right now, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. Semio coming down from the back, deciding that that's the way to go. Opsis working on his destructible rocks to make sure anything goes on, and we see Opsis' battalion of Hellions coming along, deciding to do some damage against this hatchery that's building. See +1 Zerg fire attacks on the way, and Opsis is still building Thors. Cluckcluck decided to deflect that with the roaches that are there, which is wisely done. Thor is here. We see an infestation pit and a hive. +2 Zerg melee attacks, passion and glance for the infestors, so it looks like we're going to see some infestor play. And still adding more to the mutaball. We're up to 16 mutas, and I don't think Opsis really has an idea of what's going on. You know, it hasn't scanned, so those mutas, if left unchecked, are going to be able to do a lot of damage. They run into these 3 turrets and decide that shooting them down one at a time, or shooting down them one at a time, is worth taking the damage, picking off the siege tank here and there. And the Thords come in and decide to deflect that. We see a counterattack coming from Opsis running in, and it looks like without any kind of roaches being able to deflect it, a lot of these units are going to die, but the mutas come back and they will mop up in time. So we see 84 Zerglings being produced for our Cluck Zerg after mopping up all of those units. Now we also see Neural Parasite coming from Cluck, so it's very interesting to see if he's going to utilize that to mind control some of the siege tanks or mind control the Thors. We see Opsis taking a 4th as well. Going to the unit counting station, we see 61 workers to 50 drones for Cluck. This is actually a trifling matter. Cluck able to pretty much do what he wants. He should be droning to about 70 or 80 drones to be able to satisfactorily saturate all of his bases and be able to reproduce consistently. If it gets into an exchange situation, Cluck's not going to be able to go toe-to-toe. Cluck also doing a very good job of spreading his overlords around the map. He has a pretty good idea of what's going to go happen the entire time. Opsis also building a base at the 12 o'clock location, so it looks like Opsis is going to be dual expanding. We see some interesting upgrades from both players, but hold that thought. We see the Zergling run in and cancel that command center. Very well played by Cluck to make sure that doesn't happen. We have +2 infantry weapons, or not infantry, but vehicle weapons and armor being researched. We also see the 250mm strike cannons, which is actually very interesting. A lot of people don't get that upgrade. See some additional Thors, Hellions, and some Banshees actually being played. In response to that, we see some Corruptors being built. Actually, Cluckcluck's going up to about 15 Corruptors. We see 5 Infestors on the way, and the Greater Spire is about 2/3 of the way done. Also getting Adrenal Glands from the spawning pool. Cluck, you made Day 9 proud getting that upgrade that increases your damage by about 20%. We also see the Greater Spire about pretty close to being done. Excuse me. And Cluck deciding that it's okay to exchange with those Hellions, erasing those Hellions, and still having some Zerglings left over. Excuse me. I'm a little stickily and sniveling, and it's very inappropriate and unprofessional. We see 4 Broodlords morphing in, and a lot of Corruptor support. I really think this game is going to come down to the air control. I mean, Cluckcluck's doing a very good job of getting his upgrades for his units. He's actually skipping the Spire upgrades right now, and he kind of had to in order to get the Greater Spire, but he should be continuing those upgrades. He's doing a really good job of making sure that his Zergling, Baneling, and soon-to-be Broodlings are actually upgraded, getting +3 melee attacks. God, I need to stop doing that. Now, Opsis is pretty close to max, still building Hellions and Thors, and he still has a lot of Siege Tanks locking it down as he starts 3-3, so it's going to be very interesting to see how both of these units decide to react. I really think that it's just going to come down to one battle, and we'll see what kind of happens with it. We see a move out coming in from Cluck, with 10 more drones adding on to the mix. We also see a Hydralisk thing going down for Cluck as he runs in with a good group of these Mutalisks. This is not the engagement that he wants to do, losing a lot of his Mutalisks. He is only down to about 9 now. We're actually down to 3 Mutalisks, and that was what was converting him from being able to do that. We see a big engagement going in, a scan going in, being able to see the high ground units. We see some Infestors rolling in with some mind control. Thul is now the Zerg. That's not the attack. And Cluck and Opsis exchanging pretty well, but the thing is that Opsis' ground army is now decimated, and Cluck's 9 Broodlords are still doing quite a bit of damage. And without any kind of reactors on his original starports, he can only make 2 Vikings at a time, and 2 Vikings isn't going to be directly enough, even though Cluck really doesn't have a whole lot of anti-air on his own, except for these couple of Corruptors. So it's going to be very interesting to see how... I stop saying it's very interesting, because Cluck's in a demanding lead. We see 2 additional starports being thrown down, and we see a planetary fortress being placed right there as a siege from Cluck's units be able to come in, actually knock down a lot of stuff. These Vikings are taking out random Corruptors here and there, and these Banshees are just taking the Zerglings and Broodlings that are down, so not really doing a whole lot being able to be effective. Some Infestors throwing down some Infested Terrans, and quite a few Infested Terrans going down. That command center deciding to go home. We see 2 Thors that are actually stuck inside Opsis' base. Unfortunately not being able to do a whole lot down there. We see some Thors walking around all over the place, but they're stuck. They're not able to really get into the fight, and these Broodlords are doing lots and lots of damage. Now we see 1 lone Viking actually doing all the anti-air, but it's not enough. It's just kind of casually fighting whatever's there. So Opsis taking lots and lots of damage, down to 63 food, as Cluck is still about 140 and taking additional bases. So Cluck deciding that the siege that was done is enough right there, and these Zerglings are still just mopping up anything that's inside the base. Opsis decided to convert into a strictly air army, getting enough Vikings to be able to take out the Broodlord that's right there. And Cluck needs to be really careful because, yeah, he's got some Infestors with some Infested Terrans, but there's not a lot of true anti-air going on. These Vikings are actually flying around the map and popping off whatever they possibly can. So we have 3 Corruptors actually rallying in to defend Opsis, but going to the upgrades, we got 0/0 upgrades for Opsis, and we've got +1 fire attack for the Corruptors, so they're actually slightly going to take an advantage, and Opsis decides to leave the game. So Some interesting openings. I'm really actually surprised that Cluck decided to go open roach. He built enough roaches to be able to handle any kind of Hellion play. He was just able to macro his little heart out, and even though Opsis did a pretty good setup for a mech-based army, he just didn't have the anti-air, and just didn't have any kind of knowledge of what was going on. So I hope that satisfied the game that I needed to cast for one.